Kyle Buthman. Welcome to Nick's Vancast.
All right, thanks for having me.
I've been following you a long time on Instagram, which that sounds weird, but I really like your content. I'm like, a local guy doing some really awesome filmmaking, and as a filmmaker myself, I've always just been really into the stuff you're putting out there. So this is really cool for me to be talking with you.
Cool, man. Thanks.
How did you? So you're from the East Side, right?
I am from the East Side.
And then what came first for you? So you do surfing, filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, it all started with surfing, right? My dad was a surfer, so I didn't really have much of a choice. It was just like, hey, we're going to go to the beach today.
Yeah.
Every weekend or whatever, it was just like, we're going to the beach. So I was just at the beach, and all of a sudden, my dad's pushed me into waves. Like, I don't even really remember actually starting surfing. So I guess I've been surfing for longer than I can remember. But I remember through the photos, because there's like a couple photos of me when I was like 5 years old, like full arms out like this on my dad's board, and he's in the back, pushed me in. So that was kind of where it all started. And then I guess, growing up, I just didn't really ever go towards like Little League or anything like that, where a lot of, kids were playing Little League and doing this. For me, it was just surf. That's it. That's all I wanted to do. And I hung out with a group of friends, and that's all they wanted to do as well. I mean, before that, it was like boogie board and skateboard and all these things. And skateboarding I always skateboarded for a long time too. And, eventually, like when I was 12 or whatever, I stopped boogie boarding and was just focused more on surfing. And then I remember my dad got like a little handy cam. So he used to have like a big camera that put full VHS tapes in the side. Like, people probably don't even know what VHS tapes are anymore, but they go in a VCR. That's like, if a Grom's listening, it's like, what's a VHS tape? Right. They go in a VCR and they play like a DVD, but DVDs are outdated now too. But anyways, things were like, he had this camera that was like this big. It sits on your shoulder. It looked like a news camera nowadays. But it was pretty rad, because when you're done with it, you can just take the VHS tape out and put it on. So I remember like a couple sessions when I was a kid, he filmed me on there, and then we just plop the VHS tape into the VCR, and you could just watch the session. It's pretty sick. So eventually he upgraded. I remember it was like almost like a present to me. It was a camera for him, but like a present to me, because then I was going to get film surfing, and obviously you're Grom, you want to see yourself surf. So yeah, he was nice enough to kind of film me when I was a kid. And eventually I was 13 years old, I think, and I was in a contest at Pleasure Point, and the waves were really good. So I kind of went out and surfed my heat. I had surfed a couple heats. I made it to the final, and then there was like a long gap before the final. And I was like, I'm going to go surf Sewers. So that's the next wave up. So I ran up to go surf out there, and got a couple waves, and then I was on my way back out, and a guy was coming down a wave, and he was kind of like hung up in the whitewash a little bit, and I was trying to come by him, and he kind of shot out of the whitewash. So I ducked over, my back foot came up, and his fin just sliced right through my Achilles tendon. So, yeah.
How old were you at the time?
I was like 13.
Oh my gosh.
So I had like this giant cut on the back of my heel down here. You can see it. It's like right on the bottom of my Achilles.
Oh my gosh.
And it didn't actually snap the tendon. It went halfway through the tendon. So I just had a bunch of blood and was like, man, that hurts. But I paddled in, and I got up to the top, and everyone's like, oh my God, you're bleeding, like whatever. And I had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I went to the hospital, and the ER, I got to wait and do all that. And then finally I get in there, and I'm like, hey man, you got to stitch me up fast, because I got a final to go surf. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm in a surf contest right now, and like I just did this, so I need you to give me stitches. I'm gonna put a booty on it, and then I'm gonna surf in the final. And they're like, easy there. So they start inspecting, and all of a sudden they're like, you need surgery. I'm like, what? They're like, you cut through your tendon. Like, I'm like, no. So like, you're not doing your contest. They're like, you're not even gonna be walking for 6 months. That's what they told me. I was like, what? It's not what you want to hear when you're like 13 years old. All you want to do is surf all day, right? So I was like pretty bummed. And I get the stitches, they stitch up the tendon, and then they stitch up the outside. And they told me the recovery was going to be like 6 months. So I got a cast. I was full on in a cast. It was like all the way to my knee down to my foot. And I had to wear the cast for a while, man. It was like 6 weeks in a cast.
Whoa. No surfing, right?
Well, the second cast was a walking cast. So it was like you wear a little boot and you can walk. You don't have to be on crutches anymore. And I started surfing in the cast because I was like, what's going to happen? My foot's stuck in one place.
Yeah.
So I actually surfed in the cast, like probably way more than I should have.
Does it not get soggy or
Oh,
fall
it got
off?
soggy and sticky, but I was like, I'm going surfing. So yeah, I did surf in the cast quite a few times. I even did a couple contests in it. I think I made a final in one. It was
Wow.
pretty funny.
That's memorable for people.
For sure. So then I got the cast off after like, man, I was in the cast for a while. I might have been in the cast for like 2 months. And then I got the cast off and it was pretty quick after that. Like I remember, I think the 3 months in, I went surfing no cast and it wasn't that bad already. And then like 2 weeks after that, I was like, all good.
Wow.
And, you know, so I made a pretty good recovery speed, I guess. And then everything was fine again. But during that time that I couldn't surf, I was just hanging out and had nothing to do. And my dad had that camera and all my friends were going surfing. So I'm just like, hey, I'm going to film these guys. I remember at the time I didn't want to use a tripod. I was like, I don't need a tripod. So I just filmed them, just handheld, little digital camera. They've got a ton of zoom, those little digital cameras, you know?
Yeah.
Thing took like a mini DV tape. And yeah, I just started filming like Austin Smith Ford and a couple of my other friends at the time and just compiled all this footage. It was middle of winter. I think I did it like maybe in October, November. So I pretty much through the winter was just shooting a bunch. You know, every session after school, I'd get off school and just, hey, where are you surfing? And then I'd come down and shoot. So I got a bunch of clips and then I ended up getting better. So then I was surfing again, but I had all this footage. I had like just tons and tons of mini DV tapes full of footage. And I was like always interested in surf videos. I loved surf videos growing up. It was like, I just watched surf videos like religiously. And my favorite videos were the local guys that were making films because at the time there was so many pro surfers in Santa Cruz like Flea and Ratboy and that whole generation of guys. And there was a couple guys in Santa Cruz that were making films. I remember, you know, Tony Roberts films growing up were like the earliest films kind of from Santa Cruz that I remember. And then more so the ones that I really grew up on because it's like during that time were all Josh Palmer films and even Graham Nash films. Like I just loved all these movies. Like all the movies that were shot in Santa Cruz, that was my favorite ones because it was like these are the waves that I surfed and the guys that I looked up to and whatnot. So that's fully what inspired me. And I was sitting on all this footage and I was like, man, I want to edit all this footage. My family didn't even have a computer at the time. So I convinced my parents to buy a computer. They bought some like used computer and I got some like editing software on it and I edited like a full video. I think it was like 40 minutes long or something.
Wow.
And I edited the whole thing without any music first, just like had it all how I wanted to look at the time. And then I was like, oh, I need to put music in. And I couldn't figure out how to put music in at the time, which is like this kind of, you know, pretty janky computer and janky editing system. And myself being like a kid and just like had no training. It was just like, I'm going to just do it. And I figured out, for some reason, I could only figure out how to put one song in it. So I put the longest song I could find. It was a Metallica song. It was like 13 minutes long, 13 minutes long. I put it in the intro. And then after the 13 minutes, the rest of the movie was like 30 more minutes without music. So I was like, you just got to put your own music on after that. But that was the first video I ever made. And it was called Tricks Are for Kids. And yeah, so that's kind of where it all started. But then after that, I kind of just went back to surfing and dropped the camera and like, but I never forgot about it, you know? It was always like an interest. Just as I got older, I'd always have like a little camera with me. So I'd go on surf trips and I was riding for Quicksilver. So I'd go stay at the Pipe House in Hawaii or go to Mexico or whatever. I'd always bring a camera with me. And I would just shoot when I wasn't surfing or just random stuff that was going on at the house or whatnot. And I was just finally, guess I had a computer to edit on at this point, and I'd kind of like edit little stuff, and Quicksilver started putting it on their blog. Like I had a blog with Quicksilver almost, and it would be like, you know, make videos. So I made a couple videos and then was surfing, and then pretty much got out of high school, I guess, and I wasn't making money really. I wanted to be making money surfing, but I wasn't really making money surfing. I was maybe a couple $100 a month, but not enough to live off. And I ended up getting hurt again. I was surfing the harbor, and I was kind of coming through the inside. I came from the outside and came through on the inside of the wave, and I tried an air, and I actually remember someone was filming that day, so I was like, really trying to stick this air, and the wave was sucking up. And I probably should have just kicked it out, but I was like, oh, I'm going to stick this thing. And I just came down and landed in the flats, and like right in the explosion of the wave, and my knee just went, I heard it pop like 3 times underwater. I'm like, oh no.
Gosh, did you like hyperextend it or something?
I just like tore my MCL.
Oh.
So yeah, then I was injured again.
Oh my gosh, back to the camera.
Back to the camera, exactly. But, you know, some injuries are blessings, I guess.
Wow.
Because that was kind of like a blessing, actually. It turned out to be. It sucked at the time, but I picked the camera back up. And actually that year, Quicksilver was like, oh, we need someone to shoot like in Hawaii this year. And I was like, oh, I'll do it. So I ended up shooting like the whole season over there, like right at the Pipe House. And that was my first paid job, I think, doing video. So then it was kind of like, oh, I can actually like make some money doing this or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of all started from there.
The origin story.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it kind of all kicked off like, well, you know, you saw your dad with the camera, but then the injury really happened.
Yep.
Was that, he wasn't taking the camera in the water, right?
No,
The
no, he's just on the beach.
Okay. Because now you're going in the water.
Yeah.
Was anybody at that time bringing cameras in the water? Or
For sure, guys.
their cameras?
Yeah, I mean, ever since like Tony Roberts days, he was like shooting in the water and doing crazy angles. He would do like ride behind guys, and he had like cameras on poles. He was super innovative filmmaker back in the day. So there's been like a lot of really cool people in Santa Cruz over the years. You know, Tony Roberts was definitely one of the most influential guys. Then Dave Nelson, really influential photographer, like all crazy flash and just like so much cool stuff that came originally out of Santa Cruz in the surf world.
Josh Palmer, he did Westsiders, right?
He did do the
Because I
Westsiders.
watched that a few months ago for the
Yeah.
first time. And, you know, as you're talking about surfing with your friends, it was like, oh, I could see like Flea and those guys. Flea was on this show with me, and he's telling me about growing up and surfing with your friends and stuff. They must have been psyched to see themselves on a surf film that you made right away.
For sure, yeah, 100%.
So when you got back to surfing after the injury, where they're like, we need you to keep making films.
I think so that year that I got injured, I went to Hawaii and then I got home and I could surf again, but I was pretty like dedicated at this point. Like I wanted to shoot too. So I was kind of doing both. I was like full double duty, and I'd just surf and then I'd get out of the water and then I'd shoot. And then I'd surf again and then get out of the water and shoot. And, you know, go home and load all the footage and just keep doing that. So I was kind of doing that all winter long. And then I was so inspired by Josh Palmer and all those guys' films, and what they'd do was premiere them at the Rio and have this big, you know, premiere party. So that was always like what I wanted to do. So yeah, that was we're in 2010 now, I believe, or 2009. That would have been the winter 2009, 2010 when I really picked up the camera and started shooting a bunch. Went to Hawaii and then came back, and yeah, I shot the whole winter in between surf sessions, but definitely shot a lot and made a whole video, which you just had on here a second ago. It's called Get Rad. That was my first one. So we did a big premiere at the Rio 2010 for that one. And that was like, I guess, my first one that anyone really saw. Because anyone who wasn't like one of my super close friends never saw anything before that. Or I guess the little one we sold at the shop, but, you know, not much. Yeah. That was like the biggest thing I'd done at that point was Get Rad.
So you have a ton of content out. And I was going to ask you, you know, as a very talented surfer as well, I can imagine like not wanting to get out of the water and start shooting if you're having fun in the water. Like, how do you balance that of surfing and then you're like, I want to go shoot too?
So that was more at first. It was more of the balancing act, because at that point I wanted to, like, you know, make a name for myself in the film world as well, more so. So it was like I had to do that. I had to sacrifice surf sessions to do it. And I guess I just got used to it. It was just like, oh, I'm going to surf and then shoot. And I always like shooting because then you come home, you have something after that lasts longer than the session. You know, the session's super fun while you do it, but then you go home and you're kind of just like, eh. So it was always cool to like bring home the footage and be stoked. Yeah, this is sick. You know, this is a sick shot. So yeah, that's kind of where it all started, was just balancing surfing and shooting. And then, like I said, I was riding for Quicksilver. So after I filmed that year in Hawaii, they were just like, oh, you want to keep shooting for us? And I was like, yeah. And I remember I was like, you know, doing both things. I had a contract with Quicksilver actually that was like partly surf, partly shoot. So I had to do like a couple videos a year for them and then a couple surf things. And that was like, yeah, it was cool.
That's a great gig to have.
Yeah.
Wow. So Get Rad one.
Yeah.
Was that part of that contract with Quicksilver?
No,
or was that
I
just
mean, it was a small
independent?
contract. I was making barely anything, but I was,
And then
that's where I started.
I mean, you premiere it at the Rio.
I did.
I mean, how does that happen? Because you've had tons of stuff. I mean, you just had something recently at the Rio, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you just say, "Hey, everybody, I put up some more gold," and they're like, "Come on down."
For sure. I remember that first premiere actually was still for sure probably my favorite premiere of all time for Get Rad.
But how do you even say, "I want to premiere it there"? You just ask.
You just got to pay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just got to rent the place out and then hope that you can sell enough tickets to pay it back.
And you did, right?
So yeah, we rented it out, and I was like, I remember like, man, I'd be super stoked if we get some like a good turnout. And the Rio holds a ton of people, especially like pre-COVID days when they didn't really care. They just let people pile in. So that first Get Rad at the Rio, like we had a crazy turnout. But I remember making tickets, and I remember like how many seats does the Rio had? And the Rio had like 650 seats at the time. I think they changed the seats since then. It has less now. But they had 650 seats, and I'm like, man, if I could sell 300 tickets, that'd be insane. Like, that was my goal. Like, I want to sell at least 300. But then I remember I went and made, like, cardboard cutout tickets. And I was like, how many should I make? And I'm like, well, I might as well make 650, right? Just in case. Had no, like, plan of that many people coming, but I remember we made these really cool tickets for that first one. That's the only one we made like really cool tickets for. Had like the artwork for the movie on it and whatnot. And I remember just cutting them all out on the paper cutter at Kinko's, and then big flyers and just going all over town. That was like before Instagram days. It probably was Facebook and stuff, but like it was all about paper flyers at that point. We were just printing flyers and just give them to my friends and myself and just post them all over town. And then all my friends were in the movie, so they wanted people to see it too. So they're putting flyers up for me and whatnot. So the whole town was littered in Get Rad flyers. And for like probably a couple weeks before the movie came out. And then the night of came, and it was like, I remember like I was inside setting stuff up at the Rio, and I came outside and there was like a line so far down the street, like it was just like you couldn't even see the end of it. It was like there's so many people here, like it was nuts. So we were selling tickets, and we sold through 650 tickets, and more people are coming. We're like, well, we might as well just keep selling tickets. So I think there was like over 700 people that first one. It was like people were just lined up in the hallways of the Rio, and like it was pretty sick. That was the first premiere we ever had.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was
that must feel good. I mean, that's got to feel great because when you put a video out, even when there's no theater, it feels good and people give you good feedback.
Oh, I mean, that's
see the
like,
people show up.
100%. I mean, that's like my favorite part to this day of making films. A lot of it is like showing it. It's like you get to show your work,
Yeah.
Like you want to have something that you're proud of, and then you want to show it.
Yeah.
So, and it's always fun to do like a full party premiere for it, let people watch it on the big screen. Like, nowadays, like everyone's watching stuff on their phone. It's like they don't get the real experience. So it's always cool to like have a big screen and good sound and let people see it.
That's so true. I mean, are you going to continue to do stuff like that at theaters? Because that's so true. So
that's
many
the best
people.
part.
You're right. It's like phones.
Yeah.
It's like the small thing.
That's a huge part of like COVID that was a bummer, was not being able to do premieres. Like I had so many films that I was like, oh man, I want to do a premiere for this, but we can't, because it's just like no one could be together. But now it's been cool because, been able to do a couple more premieres. We did one in the city a few weeks ago, or that was like a couple months ago, I guess now, but for a little short documentary I made up there. And then we just had another one here in Santa Cruz at the Rio again for the Peter Mel documentary they made. And yeah, a couple other ones here and there. I did one actually down in Mexico in Baja, just a small one. And yeah, it's been fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you go into that night and you see people coming out and they see what you've created, and I mean, is that the first time when you think, oh, I can make a living doing this and make my career of it? Or was it before that or after that?
Yeah, man, I don't even know. It was just like I didn't want to work at Pacific Wave anymore. And I didn't go to school. Like I didn't go to college after, I graduated high school, and then that was it. I actually did go back to Cabrillo and take a couple classes, but I didn't really go to college.
Yeah.
And I took a couple video classes though, but honestly I didn't learn that much. It was like I learned more from just doing it. It was like starting and just doing it. And then I guess when I actually like, what really taught me a lot was like finally my videos got, they're you progress. Time goes by and you get better and you get better. And I remember at the time Nat Young was training with Joey Wolf. You were talking about Joey Wolf, right?
Yeah. Paradigm.
Yeah, Paradigm Sport. So Joey Wolf at the time, he had Paradigm Sport over here, right where Rocky's gym was, right by Billabong Surf Shop. And Nat was training with Joey. So we all kind of started training with Joey and Nat just because it was fun. It was like just a couple of us, me and Nick Hernandez and Nat. We'd all train with Joey. And at one point, Joey wanted to make a video. So he like hired me to make a video with Nat. And I made it. And it was kind of like, it had some surfing in it, but it was mostly him in the gym. And it had like a voiceover with Joey talking about, whatever. And it came out pretty good. I remember like at the time, because I probably really hadn't done anything like that at the time. Like, oh, this is cool. It came out good. And then, I don't know, I guess like people saw my work over time or whatever. And then I remember I got hit up by CrossFit. So CrossFit they were doing all these edits for like the CrossFit games. They were looking for a crew to hire to like shoot and edit a bunch of stuff for them. So I went up and like had an interview with those guys, and that was the video I showed them, was the one I made with Joey Wolf. And they were like, wow, this is really good. So I think pretty much because of that video they hired me, and like that was the first time like I was making pretty good money doing video stuff, and it was gnarly work though. I remember the games were like 5 weeks long, and we were working like in the office straight up. Like I remember my first day in there, 16 hours.
What?
Like production days are gnarly. People think like, oh, like you don't even have a real job. It's like, wait, what?
No.
Like a lot of times I am out just on my own schedule and whatnot, but like when you're in like production with the crew, it's crazy.
Like corporate production.
Oh man,
Yeah.
we were in the office and just grinding. Like straight up, first day was 16 hours. Like I never want to do this again. It sucked. But we grinded like 5 weeks straight, just making all this content for the CrossFit Games, and that was like a really big client for me at the time. But also that's where I learned so much. It's like it wasn't like I loved doing that kind of stuff so much, but I got to work with producers and directors and editors, graphics people, whatever. Like it was all there, and it was a bunch of people working together, and I learned the ins and outs of production and a lot of live webcasts, because then after we did like the CrossFit Games, there's the regionals were the 5 weeks long, and then in July, because that was in the spring, and then in July they'd do the CrossFit Games. So then we'd go down to LA, we'd shoot the games and edit a bunch of stuff for that, like on site. And it was like, that was just like a week long, but it was just like, 12 hours a day, every day. But it was cool. That's kind of like, yeah, I learned so much from doing that. So that was like a really good gig at the time. It was kind of what I needed to really step into really doing production and learning and working with other people.
There is nothing like on-the-job training when it comes to like film work. Yeah, I did 4 years at San Jose State, and like I learned 2 years in the job after that than I did in the 4 years at school.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know what goes into production too, surprisingly.
100%.
I mean, in my job now, it's like, we just need this quick 5-minute video. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
No, I'm going to do a good job, and it's going to take me a month. Actually.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to take me a day.
People sometimes will ask me like, how long does it take you to make a video like that? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know, and I don't even want to know.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I don't even have any idea how much I put into that time, but like a lot.
It's
like sometimes I've actually gone into certain projects where it's going to be a big one, and I was like, man, what if I just like started a timer every time I'm working on this thing just to see how long it took? And I've never actually done it because I've just been like, I'll probably just be like depressed if I actually see how much time it takes to going into the next one.
Yeah,
but because the thing is, it's fun a lot of the time. You're interested in it, you want to be doing it, but then obviously it gets to be a lot too. But it's like, I think if you just knew how much you had ahead of you at the beginning, it wouldn't even be good. So I never actually time it. Just like do it.
Or you like bill a client, and then it's like, oh wow, this is like, I'm hundreds of hours over,
Oh, for sure.
You start thinking about the hourly rate you're getting.
Well, that was the cool thing about CrossFit back in those days too, is because we got paid overtime after 10 hours, we got like double time, double pay or whatever. So it's pretty sick. Like, even though the 16-hour days sucked, it's like we'd come home with a lot of money. And like for the money I was making at that time was like a lot of money for me. Like I was stoked.
Yeah. But it was always about, your passion was with filming surfing, right? Is that, would you say you're most passionate about?
For sure, that's where it started.
Yeah.
But it's more about like now, I think, telling stories, and like, I do tons of stuff that's not just surfing. So I still do a lot of stuff in surf, but it's always fun to break out of that as well. I mean, a lot of my work is outside of surfing, to tell the truth. Like we do ton of stuff up in San Francisco. There's just so much more going on up there, and we travel a lot for work, and it's always different. It's always changing. Like last week I was in Hawaii. People were like, oh, you're shooting surf, but I wasn't shooting surf at all. We were actually doing a watch commercial for Hamilton Watches with a world record-setting freediver named Pierre Fralla, and yeah, we were shooting that. So it's like we do tons of stuff outside of the surf world.
I feel like I heard that name before. Like,
Probably.
Does he go like super deep,
Super
right?
deep, yeah.
I saw a video. I don't know if it's the same guy, but he like tethered himself to the
Yeah,
pole.
that's him.
Is it the one where he's like hallucinating and
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah. That's a crazy video.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
crazy guy. What's it
Yeah.
like meeting him?
Oh man, he's a trip. He was like so wild and outgoing, and like just he'd be up at like 4 every morning, and like we'd show up, you know, wherever we were gonna shoot that morning. It was like a 4-day shoot, and he'd be like, "Oh, I've been up since 4. Like I did a workout this morning." I'm like, dude, you're nuts. He was super cool though.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun with him. It was cool.
Did he say anything about like how do you even train yourself to say, you know, I'm gonna be a free diver in my life?
I remember him talking about like his biggest fear was sharks. So it was huge for him to get over sharks. Like when he started diving, it was like he was terrified of sharks. So that was like a huge one for him to like get past. And then I think his only way of like getting over it was like actually having to go and swim with sharks. So he did it, and then I guess that kind of made him feel safer about it after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy definitely he just done some crazy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a good holding your breath record as a surfer? I mean, you got to be able
Probably
to...
not that good. I was actually talking to Pierre over there, like, man, I want to start freediving. I really do want to take some freediving courses. I think it'd be good for surfing, for some bigger waves and stuff like that. Just like more comfortable. My brother took one, and he said it was super cool.
Really? Where they like show you how to
Yeah, they
progress
show
and
you
do
how-
it?
Yeah,
It scares me.
for
I
sure.
mean, I
It'd be
used,
fun though. I think this summer I'll probably take a freediving course,
I heard, isn't there like
or
a
like a
certain
breath hold
point?
course, whatever it's called.
Yeah, where you can like overcome like your brain, and it's like
Yeah,
you're not
that's-
actually drowning. You're fine.
That's what
Like,
they say. I mean, I'm not the best person to talk to because I know nothing about it, but that's what I hear.
I'm not into that, but yeah, because it's like people are like, oh yeah, you don't know you're drowning, and then you just pass out. It's like, oh, fun. So you've surfed like big waves.
Yeah, I mean, pretty big.
I mean, that's impressive to me. Yeah, that's pretty. It's probably like huge. I mean, I used to do junior guards at Cowell's. And
Yeah.
It's like on a day where Cowell's is pumping, which is not that big.
Yeah.
This is big. It's like 3 feet waves. Like,
Yeah.
wow. I don't surf as much as I used to, but I mean, I know that feeling of catching a wave and gliding across water and being like pushed with that energy. What do you like the most about surfing when you're out there? Is it like that feeling of the wave, being with people? Like what keeps you coming back, and then also being motivated to capture it with a camera?
I don't know. I've never really been asked that question. It's just like what I've always done, and it's always made me happy. And it's always like you just that feeling that you've been chasing forever, and it just like you want to keep going. You want to go surfing again. I guess there's like nothing more fun to me in the world that like when you're getting good waves and it's just like you're paddling back out like you can't paddle fast enough. You just want another wave, and it's just like, yeah.
It is an amazing feeling.
It is, and just like chasing the whole like surfing's kind of fun because it's not like, you know, skateboarding is rad because you like go skateboard and it's so fun, but it's like you don't really chase it as much. I do remember like when I was younger, we got really into like trying to skate empty swimming pools, which was more like surfing because it was like you had to find them and like, you know, it's like forecasting surf. It's like you're looking at the swell charts and seeing where it's gonna be good, and you know that's part of the fun. Just like trying to get as good as you can at knowing where the good waves are going to be, whether it's around town or like anywhere around the world.
Santa Cruz is such an interesting place because there are so many good surfers here. Is it because, I mean, there's an ocean along the whole coast, but I feel like Santa Cruz, there's so many talented surfers from here. Is it because there are like just the best waves here?
I couldn't tell you. We've got a lot, you know, we've got good waves for sure, but it's just like, I mean, there's so much surf history in this town, starting back with like the 3 Hawaiian princes who brought surfing to California. That was right here at the river mouth. And then moving forward to like Kevin Reed was the first probably guy from Santa Cruz to be in the magazine or whatever. He had a cover shot for doing like one of the first airs in Surfer magazine. And then I think like obviously that generation of like Flea, Barney, Ratboy, Peter Mill, all those guys, like that was just like, I don't think there's really another town in California or maybe not anywhere that has like so many good surfers that have, you know, done so much in the surf world. It's pretty nuts.
Well, you talk about how you're not just filming surfing, you're doing a lot of things, and it's really all under that arc of telling stories and things. So what an amazing place that we live in, that you get to have access to all these people with amazing stories and things.
For sure.
It's got to be so inspiring. There was a film that you did. I didn't get a chance to see it yet. Tattletails. I mean, that was very story driven, right?
That was like my first one that was like, I guess you can call it progression or whatever you want to call it. But like, you know, because I made Get Rad 2010 and then I through 2013 because then I made Get Rad 2 and then I made Get Rad 3. And those were just like, you know, surf porn basically. It was just surf, surf, surf. We did have like little skits in between. It's kind of like, you know, I would watch like Taylor Steele movies growing up and they'd kind of do that. So we kind of did the same thing with that. But mostly it was surfing and it was fast-paced music. And I guess as I kind of grew as a filmmaker, I wanted to change it up a little bit. So Tattletails was the first one where I was super focused on like, first of all, making it really pretty. So it was like shooting more like early mornings and evenings to just have that good light window. And then also just like way more artsy with the filming in that movie for me at the time. It was like, you know, getting behind bushes and doing things to just find cool angles. And that's kind of right when like drones came out for the first time. So you was able to get drone angles and like all kinds of stuff like that. And then I kind of interweaved it with someone would kind of tell a story before each section pertaining to that spot that it was going to show next. And at the time, that was what I wanted to do and what I did. And yeah, that one turned out cool.
Do you have like a favorite story from that you were like really inspired by, or was it the story or was it a particular person you spoke with?
I wanted to get an interview with this guy, John Ferreira, who's like a Moss Landing surfer. He probably wouldn't want me to say that name. And he is kind of notorious for not liking Santa Cruz guys because Santa Cruz guys, you know, have historically gone down there and you know, taking photos and videos down there, and they don't like that.
Really?
So he's like kind of, I remember we'd go down there and he works at Embury, the lab down there on the south side of the jetty, and we'd go down there and shoot photos like with Ryan Craig or Nelly or whatever would come down and shoot photos of us surfing, and he'd come out of his office and just be screaming, you know, cuss words at us, telling us to beat it. So I was kind of like scared of the guy, but at one point he was attacked by a shark surfing up the coast here in Santa Cruz, and like I really wanted to get that story. So I remember I asked a bunch of people, like tried to get his phone number. I got his phone number and I kept calling him and he never picked up. I left him messages, he never called me back. And I was like, I really wanted to finish the movie, actually, like the last part to be him. So I chased him down, just showed up at his work one day and just walked in and was like, John. And he was like, probably not happy to see me at first, but I was at his work. What was he going to do?
He knew who you were.
Yeah, so we kind of walked through his whole building. He showed me everything, and I'm like, hey, I want to get this interview with me. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, finally, he's like, oh, I'll do it. But, like, not today. He's like, you got to come back, like, whatever. So I kept calling him. Finally, we set up a day, and we did it, and he told the story about the day he got attacked by a shark. So that was, like, a cool one for that movie for sure.
I love that persistence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty funny. Like that whole thing when I went down there, I remember he went to show me the surfboard that he had got attacked on. And there was a board behind it that is a surfboard that I lost that had got sucked out to sea. Like I broke my leash one time. It was a super stormy day. My surfboard got sucked out to sea and I swam for it and couldn't get it. And the thing was gone. And it was sitting in his office. And I'm like, that's my board. And he's like, no way. He's like, these fishermen found it. And I was the only guy they knew that surfed. So they gave it to me. He gave it back to me.
Oh, I was going to say.
It was like 3 years later. It's pretty funny.
My board now.
We had a couple like instances from films, like bringing old things back in Get Rad, the first one. Kyle Tierman, for the beginning him section, he like ollied off the pier and his skateboard ended up sinking. And then at the premiere, someone saw it and they're like, hey, I found that skateboard. And they gave him his skateboard back. Pretty rad.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I lost a pair of sunglasses, so keep an eye out. That was like 10 years ago. But why do people down there not like Santa Cruz guys coming to surf there?
Yeah, there's more people.
Yeah,
But I think it's more so the cameras, like, you know, a lot of just like bringing cameras down there and people don't want you to film their spots that are like that because then more people will show up. So it's like, yeah, cameras are definitely frowned upon or not even really allowed down there. Like I would never shoot down there. I don't shoot down there. Surfing footage, like I never filmed down there ever.
You surfed for a long time in Santa Cruz, and just like a general question about like the scene, because again, never really having like, I was surfing like consistently maybe for a year or two in like 2018. So I was staying at spots where I knew it was going to be like a friendlier crowd or, you know, better times of day where it's not so crowded. But I had those moments where I'm like, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and I'm going to, you know, go out to the lane or something. And you know, you find out real quick that, you know, A, you're not ready for that wave, and B, people are not happy there that you're there and not ready for that wave.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, gosh, I hate that feeling. And it's like, but you know, it's just a thing you got to learn and
For sure.
and find out where your ability matches the location, I guess.
100%.
But I mean, have you ever really run into that? Because probably not, because you're just a proficient surfer and you've been doing it for so long.
No, for sure I've run into that. I mean, that was like all of growing up, especially in Santa Cruz back in like the early 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s. Like being a kid growing up at Santa Cruz is like we got tortured by the older guys.
Yeah.
And it was out of, you know, I don't know, love or whatever, but it was like, for sure, we got so much crap growing up. Like I remember we'd go by, there used to be a group of guys that hang out at Pleasure Point. They call themselves the Pleasure Point Boys. They'd hang out on the rail at Pleasure Point, like pretty much at the end of 34th. Any time of day you go down there, they'd be there. We'd come down on the beach, like come by on our bikes or skateboards. It's like bunny ears, Groms, which meant empty your pockets. What do you have for us? So I remember my friend and I, we'd always get suited on 26th Avenue, and then we wouldn't even surf First Peak, actually. I was too scared to surf First Peak as a kid because the crowd was like the guys, I didn't know them, and I knew they were like, at the time, these guys were like fighting guys. Like Santa Cruz was gnarly back in the day. The localism was gnarly for sure. Like here more than probably anywhere else in California. And we would actually ride our bikes from 26th Avenue. We'd cut in on 30th and come down Hawes and then come out on 36th and then go surf the Hook. And then we'd surf the Hook because the people weren't as mean down there. And then we'd ride our bikes back up, cut in on 36, go down Hawes, come back out 30th, and then ride back 26, just so we didn't have to go by the boys at the rail. And we didn't even think about surfing out there. Like, honestly, we didn't even surf the point because it was like we just didn't want to get, you know, crap from the guys out there. And then my friend Tony Mikas, his brother was kind of like one of those guys. So that was my first time surfing the point. Was like Tony Mikas took me out to the point and like introduced me to all the boys. It was like you had to go shake everyone's hand. It was like, it's a different place than it used to be, man.
Yeah. I mean, has it calmed down from that, or
now it's just like everyone in the world is out there, doesn't know what they're doing, and just going in front of everyone. It's a totally different world.
Yeah.
Compared to like what it was then. It was, yeah, it's nuts how much it's changed.
Is it just because the popularity of surfing has exploded too, and there's tons of people?
For sure. Yeah, just
they see something on the video, chasing Mavericks. Now
Yeah.
I gotta go film. I gotta go surf.
I don't know what it is, but definitely more people, and it's just different, man.
Yeah.
It was definitely.
Aside from the surf film, of course, you get to do a lot of traveling for the things that you shoot and stuff.
Yeah.
Where are some of your favorite places that you like to film?
Probably the craziest place I've ever been on a work trip was to Liberia, West Africa. I got hired to shoot a Vice documentary on Ebola.
Wow. That's not surf related.
No. So we went to Liberia during the Ebola outbreak, and we filmed a bunch of people telling us what they thought about it, and it's pretty cool. That's actually a good one. It's a Vice News story. You can find it on YouTube. You have to type in you got to type in like monkey meat and the Ebola outbreak in Liberia, but that thing went huge. It got like over 5 million views or something like that. Wow. It was like but that was a crazy trip, man. Going to Liberia is like a whole nother world. I mean, that place has so much history of war, and so much has happened over there that like showing up as a white person with a camera, it was pretty gnarly. Like definitely people were tripping on us and like telling us to leave, and like we actually ended up having to leave a couple days early because I think like they thought like the Liberian government was onto us and wanted us to bail.
Whoa.
It was a crazy trip. Dude. It was like, I remember the first day we got there, I thought I was gonna die like 3 times in one day. We actually filmed a couple stories over there. We filmed 3 projects while we were there. One was on Ebola, another one was on Chinese influence in Africa, and another one was on, it was branded content for the Planet of the Apes movie, and it was called, like, we did a documentary called The Real Planet of the Apes, because there's these islands out there that they put a bunch of like lab tested apes onto to like kind of live the rest of their lives on. It was like an animal right, or there was like a bunch of like animal testing on chimpanzees going on, and they got shut down by animal rights activists, and they put all these chimpanzees on these like deserted islands just to like live the rest of their lives. And they sterilized them so they wouldn't reproduce, but they have been reproducing still. So that was one of the stories we did was out there, and we started actually with that story, like, and we took a boat out the very first morning to Liberia, and you couldn't get on the island because the monkeys will, like the chimpanzees will literally like tear you apart. They said the last person that tried to go on the island, it wasn't one of the caretakers, got her leg ripped off. Like,
are these like big monkeys?
Oh, these are huge monkeys, like scary looking huge monkeys. And I remember like we pulled up like real close. I had the camera, you know, on my shoulder, like in the front of the boat, and we were like, the island was like where that thing was. So chimps are scared of the water. They can't swim. So I was like, oh, if you're in the boat, you're safe. But we pulled up like 4 feet from the island, and this chimp started rushing like at the boat. And I literally had an expensive camera in my hand. I just dropped the thing. Just dropped it to the ground and started running for the back of the boat. Like I was going to jump into the water in the back of the boat. The thing did stop right before it got to it, but it was pretty classic. They actually used that clip like in the film and in the trailer. But it was like the monkey chasing at me and then the camera just dropping and hitting like the bottom of the boat.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty funny. So that was the first time I thought I was going to die.
We're gonna pull that up before you're gone. That's insane.
Yeah, that was the first time of that day I thought I was going to die.
First time.
Yeah, the first time. And then the second time like was driving back from there. We were driving to go shoot another location, and we were on like this tiny little road going real fast in this van, and like almost gotten a head on. Like the closest I've ever been to getting a head on. It was just like this car was in our lane and we swerved, and then the other car swerved, and we just like, it was so sketchy. So we're like, whoa, that was gnarly. And then we went and shot our next location, and then right before dark we were just going to like check out the sunset to just kind of cruise, and we pulled down this little street. There was a bunch of locals hanging out, and everyone's like flagging us down. Like we're like, what's going on? Like, why are these people flagging us? And we end up stopping, and our car was on fire. The engine of our car was on fire. I remember it was like almost like in a movie. You're like, is this thing gonna explode? Like, do cars really explode? And all these guys started running out to help us, and like they got the fire out. It was crazy.
You're laughing now.
Yeah.
You're laughing then.
I mean, maybe 5 minutes after it happened, but for sure not right at the time. Yeah, that was a nuts day. That whole trip was crazy.
Okay.
The whole time in that trip, we were trying to look because they believed that like Ebola may have come from eating bushmeat and monkey meat. So like we were literally, it was illegal obviously to eat monkey meat, but like the whole time we spent looking for people eating monkey meat and looking to buy monkey meat, and we couldn't find it until our last day leaving to the airport. Like literally on our way to the airport, we're like, oh my god, they're selling monkey right here, and we bought some monkey. And then these guys just like wanted it so bad, and it's all on film. They're like taking the monkey and eating it. They're like, can we eat this? We're like, yeah. Like, oh, thank you.
The guys on your crew, or
no, like the local guys.
Oh, I was
yeah, they were like, they love. Some of them love to eat.
That sounds so sketchy. Because you're not allowed to, you said, sell it?
Yeah, so it was almost like a delicacy. It was like, oh, give us that, you know?
Yeah, but then they find out you're going to do like an expose. They're not going to be stoked on that, right? So that's probably the 3.5 times you almost died.
Yeah.
How do you even mentally prepare for that? Or do you not? And you just show up?
Honestly, I was so clueless to like anything on that trip. It was just like at the time, it was just like, whoa, Vice wants to hire me? Let's do this. Like, let's go. I didn't even know what Ebola was, to tell the truth. I was just like, wait, what's Ebola? They're like, oh, it's like this pandemic. I'm like, oh, that's kind of gnarly, but I just went.
Oh my gosh. So do you prefer shooting, editing, or both the same?
Probably shooting, I think. I mean, it's so funny because like people always say like, oh, that was a sick edit. But was it a sick edit, or was it like shot really nicely? And usually it was shot really nicely. Like, yes, you can do a crazy edit too. That's a huge part of it. But like, it all starts with the shooting. It has to look good, right? Like, you're not going to have a good edit if it doesn't look good. Like, you can make it look better than maybe if someone shot it really bad. You can actually edit good enough to make it look okay. But if it's shot really well, it's going to look much better. So it all starts with shooting. I think that's probably my favorite part of it, would be shooting. But then if it is my own project, it's more about like the whole story and the whole just brainstorming the whole idea of it and the entire project. When it is my own stuff, I love to edit it. Like sometimes I'll get hired to edit other people's stuff where I'm not like super stoked on it. It's just like, it's like someone else's vision, not mine. It's not as cool. You know what I mean? I like to do the shooting and the editing myself, and then get someone to do the sound design and the color. And then it's like, you know?
Yeah. Which again, is like, yeah, if you have the budget, it's like cool when you can collaborate with people who are talented
100%.
in those areas.
100%.
For sure. Yeah. I agree about like when you get hired to edit other people's things too, because it's like when you shoot something and then you go to edit, it's like you see your vision really come to life.
Exactly.
I
And
love
you
that.
know kind of what you have and what's in the bank
Yeah.
and like what goes where kind of, and like you kind of can see it coming together as you see it.
How often are you like shooting and then editing like in your mind on a shoot, like seeing it in your mind come together?
Oh, always pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean, you
don't
got to
say
be
that.
thinking about the edit like
That's true.
while you're shooting.
Right.
You got to think, you know, about your transitions and how you're going to fit things together and how you're going to go from this scene to the next scene and like all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes I get so stoked. I'm like, this is going to be amazing. You sit down, you pick your music.
For
stuff,
sure. And it's just like, yeah, it's like over the years, you just kind of learn that stuff. Another place that I worked at where I learned a ton was I started working for UFC and doing a bunch of athlete profiles.
I saw one of those.
Okay.
Rockhold, right?
Yeah, I've done a Rockhold. That was
Amazing.
how it actually started. I did a Vice piece on Luke Rockhold.
Okay.
By the way, where we're sitting right now, Luke Rockhold used to live in that house right there.
Oh, shoot.
So, yeah, he was that was, I think, before he was world champion fighter. But he was, like, getting big in the UFC, and Vice had me shoot a piece with him. And then Fox came to town. Fox Sports or whatever came to town to shoot, like, this profile, and they hired me on to shoot with them. And then I guess they liked me because I spent a few years, like, traveling a bunch through the country with UFC and shooting athlete profiles with, like, UFC guys. And that was just another huge part of, like, learning because I wasn't, like, the director of photography on those shoots. I was, like, you know, second camera. So I'd work with the DP and just learn so much and work with producer and just really remember learning how to, like, set the scene. It was like, oh, you can't just, like, show up and start shooting. You got to, like, have an intro shot and an exit shot and, like, all this stuff. So it's like just, yeah, you start doing other stuff and then learn from other people and then, yeah.
You've done it all, surfing and fighting and watched commercials, even. Done everything.
All kinds of stuff.
I'm always amazed at I think I might have said this already, but the amount of talented people and amazing things that happen here in Santa Cruz.
For sure.
It's like Tyler Gilbert, the Diamondbacks pitcher who threw that no-hitter.
Yeah.
I think Santa Cruz it just lends itself to amazing stories about people and awesome things. I think it's because we live in a place where it's like, you have the ocean, you have surfing, and you have all sorts of things in the water. Then you're close to the mountains. And I mean, me growing up in Ben Lomond, I think why I surfed less was because, you know, it was only 15 minutes to the ocean, but I think we mountain biked more.
For sure. Well, we have, like, world-class mountain biking.
Exactly. So we have the mountains and the beach, and it's like,
Yeah.
and then there's like great music too, which can happen. But it's just such a rich cultural environment where people of all backgrounds can thrive and be inspired by the things that they're saying too. It's a beautiful place.
Sure.
So you're just another great example of that. So
Thanks, man.
what's next for you? What are you working on now? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, we're still editing that Hamilton commercial piece, and we're doing a behind-the-scenes video for that one too. So I've been working on that. And a bigger project that I'm working on, I guess, is another surf video. I'm doing a surf video with the Colapinto brothers, Griffin and Crosby Colapinto. They're like, I guess some of the best surfers in the world right now, you could say. Like, Griffin just won the last contest in Portugal, like the WCT over there. And we're doing a film with them, but it's kind of focusing on, like, just the whole brotherhood aspect. So we got a bunch of brothers together, like professional surfer brothers. You know, there's been so many great brothers over time, like the Hobgoods and the Irons and all that stuff. Like, there's got to be something there with brothers that kind of push each other, you know? So we got, like, a bunch of, like, brothers together to just kind of talk to being a brother and influencing each other and sibling rivalry and just brotherhood and all that kind of stuff. So we got, like, we got all the Gdauskas brothers. It was cool because we did, like, interviews, but we did them all together, so they're right next to each other talking. They can kind of go back and forth. Like, that was my whole idea, was I wanted, instead of just, like, having one guy, I wanted both brothers there to, like, talk over each other and talk back and forth. So it's a totally different kind of, like, aspect and totally different kind of, like, you get such a different thing when you have them both sitting there. So we did we shot a lot of these in Hawaii this year, but some in California as well. But we did the Gdauskas brothers, Pat, Dan, and Tanner. And then the Fletchers, that was a cool one, Christian, Nathan Fletcher. The Coffin brothers, Parker and Connor Coffin, and the Monizes, Seth and Josh Moniz, and then obviously the Colapintos. And yeah, I'm working with this guy Jacob Vanderwerk on that one. He shot a lot of the surfing and is editing most of the surfing, and then I'm editing most of the story part of it. And yeah, but that one's been fun.
That is awesome.
So that will be coming out hopefully in, like, the next couple months. It's gonna be called DNA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where can people find that?
Oh, it's gonna be on Stab.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I also recently saw, as a
It's
quick
like-
aside. Oh, sorry.
It's sponsored by Monster Energy and Stab, so it's gonna be on the. You'll have to pay for it though. It'll be on Stab, but you'll have to pay for it.
Pay for it, people. Do it. It'll be worth it.
I don't get the money.
Still, it's your work. I recently saw something you put out on Instagram through O'Neill's. It was with Honolulu.
Oh yeah,
She is an incredible surfer.
yeah.
I started following her a few years ago at a time when I wasn't surfing, just because like she's someone who makes it look so stupid easy. How'd you get connected with O'Neill's, and then for that too, because she's like obviously a world-class surfer, best in the world, right?
Yeah, she's the world champ. So my fiance Tessa, she surfs for O'Neill. She's an amazing longboarder herself. So it all started working with her, and then I guess I shot a couple trips for them that Honolulu was on, and just like kind of started compiling footage, and then I did. Yeah, the first thing I did for was O'Neill Women's. It's usually actually whoever, and it's not O'Neill that's here in Santa Cruz. That's has nothing to do with this O'Neill. Like it's another company. It's like they're affiliated, but they're not run by the same people. This one's all people in Southern California, and here's just the wetsuits. It's like O'Neill wetsuits, and then it's O'Neill clothing. So, yeah, I started working with them. I guess last year we did a Mexico trip with Tess and Honolulu, and on that trip, I actually also shot a documentary on this really like older woman who's still surfing. She's like in her 70s and living down there and still surfing, and they were super stoked on it. So one of their big projects this year was like a Honolulu Blomfield kind of short documentary on her family. So they were stoked on the last one. They wanted me to do this one. So that's one of the big projects that I worked on in Hawaii this year. That was fun. Her whole family's cool. They're, her mom's Hawaiian, and they got a cool history. Obviously a really good surfer.
Yeah.
That was super fun.
I didn't know you were engaged, so congratulations on that.
Thanks, man.
That's cool. And she surfs for O'Neill's.
She does surf for O'Neill.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you always have someone you can just film. And you're like, I'm inspired. Can you go surf? Is it like that?
I guess like we just started traveling together, and I always have a camera with me. It's like whether I'm on a surf trip or a work trip, I'm always gonna have a camera. I may not have my Red, but I'm gonna have like these little cameras. You have a GH5. Like I've traveled with the GH5 for the last like 5 years now. If I'm just on a surf trip, I'm gonna take my GH5 and my water housing or whatever, and I'm gonna shoot stuff. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I gotta ask, like, as you travel to these amazing places and see, cool athletes doing like amazing stuff, do you ever not have your camera with you and you're like, can you ever set the camera down and not think about it? Because if I'm in a place like this, I'm like, gosh, I just want to go out there and like film something, It's almost like you're letting...
For sure. I think like a lot of like my workflow to work with someone on like telling a story, for instance, like that Honolulu and her family piece, like a big part of it like was like I got to know Honolulu before this project started, just from working with her and hanging out with her on trips. We did a bunch of trips over the last year, like, and but I had never met her mom. So like her mom was a big part of that film, and it was like before I started that project, I just had to like sit down with her mom, no camera, just like learn about her. You know what I mean? Just like learn and get comfortable with her. You want people to be comfortable with you so they can really give you the right stuff and be interested in it and whatnot. And it was just like sitting down with her and talking with her and learning all about her, and then you kind of can see your story coming together in your head. And I think like the whole like really meeting the people that you're working with, especially if you're telling their story, is a huge part of it. So for sure that part you got to do without a camera, because if you have a camera, it's just like, let me stick a camera in your face.
Yeah,
like,
right.
People change when you put a camera on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think of it more like when I'm driving and I'm like, gosh, I just want to pull over and like whip the drone out or something because it's like it looks beautiful. I'm always thinking through that lens, I guess.
For sure.
And I want to get away from that because I'm like, I just want to appreciate things without a camera.
Well, I think you really can appreciate it so much more.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Sometimes like people are like, oh, it's so cool you got to film it. It's like, yeah, but like I would rather just watched it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it depends what you're working on.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not like a fan of like filming events or something. Like I shot a couple surf contests. Like I don't want to shoot that. I mean, there's nothing like creative about it. You're just like shooting guys. That's not that fun,
That's how I feel about when people ask me to do their wedding. I'm like,
yeah,
no, I don't.
You already know what's gonna happen.
You gotta do the cake, and you gotta do the cake. It's like the same thing for me.
Yeah.
But that's cool. You can tell your passion comes through, and you like telling these stories even when there's no camera there. You are interested in the topic, you're interested in what these people have to say. That really comes through in your work. I like that because while somebody can shoot something that, you know, can look beautiful, if you have a personal passion, I think that really shines through.
For sure.
It totally does in your work.
Oh, thanks.
Been a fan for a long time.
Cool.
The premise of the show, Nick's Vancast, is talking to people who have worked hard to turn their careers and their passions into careers. You're a perfect example of that. And because I say that because especially as, you know, filmmaker and before you have like a reputation for the good work that you do, you don't have a boss saying, hey, go make a video. You have to have the passion. You got to go out and do it. And you got to spend those hours editing when you're not getting paid. What kept you motivated to do it? And what would you tell someone else who wants to make a living doing filmmaking?
What kept me doing it? I just like had the desire to do it, really. It wasn't like, it was never like I mean, no matter what, like if I got a different job today, I would still be making, or if I got like $10 million or whatever, just like given to me, like I would still be making films. It's my passion, you know, it's like going surfing. Like I'm going to go surfing no matter what. Like I'm going to be making films no matter what. It's not like I'm going to stop. You know, it's like whether I'm getting paid to do it or not, I'm going to do it. And I guess that's kind of always how it's been since it started. It was just like I had the drive and the passion to just go do it. You know, a lot of people like talk about, oh, I'm going to make this, and then they don't do it. Like usually when I say I'm going to make something, I pretty much make it. Like I'm going to do it. So,
yeah, you have to.
Yeah. And I think that's really like if you want to do it, it's just like don't make an excuse, you know, like, oh, I don't have a nice enough camera or this, that, or other thing. It's like, dude, everything's got a camera on it now. Your phone's got a camera on it. Like you can make a sick movie on your phone.
Got 4K.
Yeah.
In your pocket.
Yeah. Seriously, it's like...
Isn't that crazy?
That's way better than the camera that I started with when I was a kid, you know what I mean? So if you got a cell phone, you can make a movie these days. And like, yeah, it's just like, you just got to do it and show people that you can do it. And then I guess that's how you start it.
I get mad. These kids growing up, they didn't know how hard it was for us, right? No. But no, it's going to push us to continue to create great stuff.
For sure.
And I can't see you slowing down anytime soon.
No,
I appreciate you doing this. Where can people find your stuff?
I've got a couple websites. I've got ButhmanMedia.com is one. That has like a lot of my surf work and stuff like that. I've got another website called TreehouseVisual.com, and that's got like a lot of the more commercial style work that I do. That's my friend Perry Gershkow. We kind of have a little production company out of San Francisco and here. And yeah, we work together on a bunch of stuff. So I was in Hawaii with him shooting the Hamilton spot, and we do all kinds of stuff wherever it may be. And most of that work you can find on our site, TreehouseVisual.com. And yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle Buthman, thanks for coming on Nick's Vancast.
Thanks for having me, man.
Stay safe in your worldwide travels.
All right.
And yeah, go check his stuff out.
Feel like I'm at the tippy top of my game, looking down at the raft. Confidence.